Welcome to Behind the Door, the show that addresses the real issues facing businesses today. With your hosts, business intuitive and corporate innovator couple, Suz and Mac.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Door, where Mac and I are going to dig a bit deeper in the business minds of our wonderful guests.
Today's guest is Dr. Ivan Misner. He is the founder and chief visionary officer of BNI, the world's largest business networking organization. It was founded in 1985. The organization now has over 9,700 chapters throughout every populated continent in the world. Last year alone, BNI generated almost 12.3 million referrals, resulting in $16.7 billion worth of business for its members. He is a New York Times best-selling author who has written 25 books, including one of his latest books, Who's in Your Room? He is called the father of modern networking by both Forbes and CNN. Dr. Misner is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking and has been a keynote speaker for major corporations and associations around the world. Welcome, Dr. Misner.
Hello, Ivan. I'm excited about this phone call. We haven't talked for a while. However, I do want to tell our audience about what networking can create, because you have been one of those. I'm not going to say you're just a network. I want to call you a friend now, because it was years ago, and I'm going to say 1996, 97. You came to Columbus for some reason I don't even remember, and I met you. And I went around with you as you did some things for BNI. And I was so excited about that later on we started a radio show, and I called you and said, would you be on the radio show? And you said, sure. So we have you on the radio, and you're in California. And you kind of sounded like you were out of breath when you first started on the phone call. And you said, well, I was out on my boat out on the lake, and I needed to run up the hill to get to get on the phone call. And I thought that was so great. The next time we had you on the radio, it was several years later, and you were over in London. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's in London and he's willing to do this for us. This is how wonderful. So then it comes to, here we are, we're doing podcasts, and I network with you through our LinkedIn and said, would you consider doing it again? And you went, absolutely. And I want people to know that networking is not just a fly-by-night thing. We may not connect on a daily basis, weekly basis, yearly basis, but I feel your authority as Dr. Ivan Misner is so wonderful in all that you've accomplished. But on the other hand, I feel that you've become a friend, and it is so nice to have that. So I will be calling you Ivan.
Please do. And I thank you very much, and I feel the same way. This time you're talking to me from Austin, Texas. I moved from California to Austin a few years ago. So.
Oh, wow. How's the weather for you?
Well, it's a beautiful day today. It's in the high 70s. It's absolutely perfect. And I love Austin. It's a great area.
Wonderful. Well, I let's get down to BNI has been it's been a steady Eddie for years, and there have been groups that are all over the world. And so why don't you tell our audience a little bit, they can go online and find out all about you, but why don't you just get the highlights of how you got started?
Yeah, people can go online at BNI.com. I started BNI in 1985. We now have 9,700 groups in more than 70 countries around the world. And, prior to COVID, we met every single week in person. So we had 9,700 weekly in-person meetings. what we did because of COVID was we pivoted very quickly and moved to online. So we now have 9,700 online networking groups. And in BNI, it's about building relationships and passing referrals. So in 2019, we passed over 11 million referrals and generated for our members just over $16 billion, with a B, $16 billion in closed business for our members in 2019. So it's all about helping, communities and local enterprise to build their business and be strong through referrals.
So when you talk about it being online, are you talking like Zoom calls?
Yeah, we have 9,700 Zoom accounts, and Zoom likes us very much.
I bet.
But they're BNI branded, with that many, we were able to brand it. It's a BNI branded Zoom meetings.
And so how does that really work? Because a part of BNI and a part of networking, as we all know, is being able to have that full experience of relationship building, and that doesn't just mean frontal face and that's it. It is a part of that shaking the hand and joking and your body mannerisms and the laughter and all that. How do you capture that in a Zoom call? I ask that because all the Zoom calls I'm on, I hate that part that we can't.
Yeah. So let me start with a concept, and then I'll answer your question directly.
Okay.
You can absolutely love what you do. But if you love the way you do it right now, you may become totally irrelevant, because this has completely disrupted the world. And what I'm telling business people is, look, it's your choice. You can go bankrupt, or you can change the way you do business. Which would you prefer? You let me know.
How long do we have to think about that?
But that really is the choices right now. People, if they love what they do and they only love the way they do it, they're going to be irrelevant, and they're going to struggle, and it'll be very challenging. Since the beginning of this year, I gave you our stats for last year. Since the beginning of this year, in the middle of this COVID craziness and now the resulting recessions, our members have so far generated over $10.3 billion in business during COVID. Over $10 billion. So you don't have to suffer because of the challenges that we're having through this disruption. But you have to be willing to be comfortable with the discomfort of change. Either that or go bankrupt. It's your choice.
I love your options there. I know which way I want to go.
Well, I mean, really, what are the other options?
Yeah.
So many people are so frozen in fear. I see two kinds of people. There's those who are frozen in fear and those who become focused by fear. These are fearful times. I recognize that. And you must get focused by it, not get frozen by it. And those who are frozen by it are struggling financially. Those who are focused by it are way more likely to get through this doing well.
Good point. That well said. Frozen versus focused. Okay, so let's talk. When you go to your meetings, it's still meetings as normal. You're just on Zoom, is what you're saying, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was your question? And so, yeah, we run a normal BNI meeting. Now, because it's on Zoom, there are a few differences. For example, in our meetings, we usually have open networking, where, you're able to walk around and talk to people and shake hands. Like you said, well, you can't do that on Zoom very well. So we've altered that piece of the meeting to be breakouts. So if you've got 40 people at a chapter meeting online, an online BNI meeting, the president will break the 40 people up into groups of about 3 for 5 minutes. And everybody can just kind of chit-chat and get to know each other and, find out what their business is and have a conversation. For the members, they catch up on, the week. For visitors, the members are there to answer any questions. And then the group comes all back together again, and then they go into another breakout. And so they'll do 2, maybe 3 breakouts for a few minutes, and that's our version of open networking before the meeting starts. And then the meeting is run. You would totally recognize the meeting. It's very much the same as an in-person meeting, but it's done online.
Okay, so now here's the difference though. Because I network and I'm out at all kinds of other networking events, I'm at other conferences, I'm able to sidebar conference, talk with somebody else, or I'm meeting more people, probably at least 10 times more a week than I am now. So when I go to a BNI meeting and I'm to bring a lead or someone to talk to, those leads are not as many as I used to have.
Well, based on results, I would say that's not accurate.
Okay.
We've done $10 billion in business in the last 8 months. And that is down ever so slightly from last year. At this time last year, we did a little more than $10 billion. So you're talking about a very small difference in the number of referrals and the business being done. So based on results, that hasn't been the case. And I think here's why. You talk about the quantity of people you can meet. So if your network, I believe, needs to be wide. But an effective network is both wide and deep in places. And it is that deep network that you draw upon during difficult times. The people that know you, like you, trust you, want to do business with you. Those are the people out there right now that are not only surviving this, some are thriving during COVID in the most unusual businesses. Let me give you a really good example. I'll give you two examples of BNI members who were at first devastated by COVID. One was a furniture reupholstery shop in the United States. And one of the things I did from the very beginning is I said, you got to do one-to-ones. You have got to meet with people one-to-one via Zoom and just find out how you're doing. Check in with each other. Make sure you're doing okay. And then brainstorm. What can you do to help each other? You may not be able to help everyone, but you can help someone. And so help someone. And so she was doing what I suggested, these one-to-ones. And somebody said to her, well, you have a lot of cloth, don't you? And she said, I literally have tons of cloth. He said, have you thought about, she had to lay off all her employees. He said, have you thought about making COVID masks? And she said, oh, wow, no. He said, why don't you try it out, see if you can do it. So she made 100, and she gave 2 to every BNI member. She gave 2 to every BNI member. She mailed some, she dropped some off, and she said, 1 is for you. The other, would you please give to a healthcare professional, a doctor, a nurse, a nursing home, anyone that you might know in any one of those industries, would you give them one along with my card and let them know that I'm making these masks? She got massive orders. She was able to rehire every one of her employees. They did physical distancing. She's now a COVID mask manufacturing business, which is an essential business. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about that takes place when your network is deep and not just wide. Here's one more quick one. A brewery in Australia. Well, the bars were closed, so he wasn't doing much business. And someone said to him, you got a lot of alcohol, don't you? And he said, yeah, I got a lot. He said, have you thought about making hand sanitizer? He's like, oh my goodness, no. And so he went into the hand sanitizer business. He hired everybody back, and he's going gangbusters. So these are 2 examples of the kinds of thought process that people can go through to do well during these very, very challenging times.
Okay, I have a quick question. I was just curious. So it's now on Zoom as opposed to being face-to-face, and you have 9,700 of these groups. I have no idea how many are average or in a group, but have you, since it's being done by Zoom, that means you could be anywhere in the world and participate. Have you thought about doing anything like rotating parts of the groups so that, I'm trying to think of what the game used to be when you were kids. But anyway, so all of a sudden this next month we're going to rotate, 5 from each group to go to the next group. Something like that. Have you thought about it?
Well, yeah, so yes, but different than that. I mean,
Okay.
You have to understand that it's all about building the relationships. So sending 5
Yeah.
people to another chapter and having those 5 people say, hey, this is what I do, that's just not much better than spamming somebody. I
Okay.
don't know you. I don't trust you. I don't know anything about you other than you're a member of another chapter. It's all about relationships. Networking is more about farming than hunting. Now, having said that, I can tell you that many, many members are in fact visiting a chapter as an individual. They'll visit another chapter, oftentimes in another country. And so that's allowed. We allow members to visit other chapters, but they have to be conscious of the fact, they have to be conscious of 2 things. First, if there's somebody who's in their business that's in that chapter, you can't do any kind of pressure sales because there's already somebody in that group. And the second thing is you have to remember that nobody knows you, and so this is a relationship organization. So don't have an expectation that you're going to get a ton of referrals, but you are going to make some initial contacts. Those referrals are coming from your chapter. Knowledge, information, new ideas comes by visiting other chapters, and that is definitely happening.
That's crazy good. Okay, so
Let me add one other thing to it. I think, I first wrote about online meetings 2 years ago at entrepreneur.com. I wrote an article saying the future of face-to-face is online. And I wrote that because of the technologies that were being developed with holographic technologies, mixed reality technologies. And I saw BNI, Kodak invented the digital camera. They invented it. They owned the patent to it. They licensed it to other people because they didn't want to interfere with their film processing business. They were disrupted by that. I see the future of networking being highly disrupted by technology. Now, I thought it was because of the technology that's coming, but who saw COVID? I certainly didn't see that. So we've accelerated. We will either lead the disruption or we will be disrupted. We wanted to lead the disruption. And so making this transition, I think, is important. Now, to go back to your original question, I think the genie's out of the bottle. I think what's likely to happen in the future when this COVID has passed us is we're going to see BNI groups that are a hybrid that maybe, we haven't made decisions on this yet, but we're open. Maybe they meet online 3 times a month and in person once. Here's a low-hanging opportunity. In those areas of the world that have snow days, in BNI, when the school has a snow day, the chapter doesn't meet. Well, now, instead, if the school has a snow day, we meet online. So that's a no-brainer. We will absolutely change what we do permanently with something like that, even if we don't do anything else. But my guess is the genie's out of the bottle, and we'll end up with some hybrid.
I so agree with this, what you're saying here. There are so many things that in so many different industries that they were trying to drive people to technology, in banking, in ordering groceries, in all different facets that they were trying to drive that. And with COVID, it forced the issue immediately. So I understand what you're saying. Now, the other question on this, and I don't know if you want to answer this or not, but it's going to be on the sales side of things. And that is, okay, now you were a salesperson and still are, I know, but now people are saying, well, now I can get that referral, but how do I get in the door? I can't go, how do I get to their emails? How do I do a presentation? How do I know who to go to that's going to make the decision? That part of their world has changed as well.
Well, listen, how do I go to the person that's going to make the decision has always been an issue. So that's nothing new. The first part of your question, though, I bet you already know the answer to it. How are we doing it now? We do it by Zoom. We do it by Skype. We do it. We go crazy and make a phone call. But I think that's the least ideal opportunity, is to make a phone call when you're talking to a prospect about a product or service. I think you do it by Zoom or you do it by Skype, just like they're doing the BNI meetings. And oh, by the way, it works. Despite all the naysayers who say, oh, it'll never work, it works. We've done over $10 billion in business through referrals during the COVID. I like to call this the great pause. I don't like it. Mindset's important to me. I don't like lockdown or quarantine. This has been the great pause. The pause button has been hit on many, many businesses, but not all. And we're operating as normal, except, instead of social distancing, it's physical distancing. We're as social as ever in BNI, but physically we're distanced.
I agree. It is. I think the one thing that I do see in having it online or Zoom is that, I've always been one to be able to read body language and know if someone is interested, if I should move on, if I should, if I should continue to talk about that a little longer. Do they understand it? And when you only see a small section of their face, it's very hard for that. So trying to learn all those skills on a flat format has been difficult. And how many Zoom meetings do you go to and you see on the screen people that are distracted, looking at something else, and they're bored out of their mind. So it is, boy, you really have to do it quickly, whatever you're going to present.
Yeah, well, we certainly have been addressing that in BNI. You got to stay engaged. You have to stay focused. And you see people that get distracted very easily. But when you're having a one-to-one conversation, it's a lot harder to get distracted if you're presenting. And remember, these aren't cold calls. You use the term leads. We pass no leads in BNI. Leads are a bad word. We pass referrals. The difference between a lead and a referral is, hey, here's somebody's number. I think they might need your service. But you don't know them, and you're not sure if they need your service. A referral is, hey, here's somebody's number. I talked to them. They really need your service, and they're willing to take your call. That's the difference between a lead and a referral. And we pass referrals in BNI, which means the person's expecting your call or your Zoom connection, and they're expecting to have a conversation with you, which means the closing ratio is much higher than leads that might come from other forms of marketing.
So it's somewhat qualified.
Exactly.
Okay. So you have the BNI, and they have their regular meetings, and they all have relationships, and they know that part of the game is to pass on referrals. And so during the rest of the week, as they're out looking and talking to referrals and finding referrals, they will all of a sudden be talking about something, and they'll mention something that, that makes me think of so-and-so. And so you'll start to qualify that referral for your relationship, your network.
Right. That's how it works.
Okay, so there are other networking activities that take place. So I'm sure that most of the people in BNI are not just BNI, not that that wouldn't be a good thing, but that
No, actually that would be a bad thing.
Okay.
And I say that to members. It's like, it's like a good financial planner will tell you, you have to diversify your portfolio. And so you need to be active in different investments. You need to be active in different kinds of networks. Don't join two groups like BNI. That's not going to help you. As a matter of fact, that'll come bite you in the butt. But be in a chamber of commerce. I've been recommending chambers of commerce for decades. Be in JCI, Junior Chamber International. I've been recommending them for decades. Be in a professional association. Be in groups like like NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners. I recommend that our members participate in at least 2 or 3 different types of networks to diversify their connections and contacts. And I've been saying that since I wrote my book, The World's Best Known Marketing Secret, back in 1994.
Okay, so is there anything you say, but whatever you do, don't bother spending your time going to these types of networks? I mean, I agree with. I mean, so like we're part of the chamber, and a variety of other things, and so we know that there. I mean, we've almost. It's like you qualify these organizations to say, I'm more likely to find our clients, our future clients here. But then all of a sudden, somebody invites you to XYZ, have a champagne and meet somebody event. Is there any of those that you say, whatever you do, don't go to these? They're just a waste of time.
So I'm not going to throw another network under the bus. Let me tell you what I preferred when I started BNI. I went to a lot of networks that I felt were very mercenary. They were just, I'd go there and everyone was selling to me. And I felt like I'd been slimed, and I felt like I had to go home and get a shower. And I hated those groups. And then I went to other groups that were totally and completely social. It was happy hour and hors d'oeuvres. And by the way, some of them were chambers, but some of the chambers I went to were fantastic. They were great. And so it's not one type of group oftentimes, it's the way a type of group actually behaves. And so I went to some groups that were totally and completely social. And I didn't like those because, I wanted to do business. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to create something that was focused on business but wasn't transactional and mercenary, and that was relational but not totally social. And the glue that would hold the two together is our principal core value of givers gain. This idea that if I help you, you'll help me, we'll all do better as a result of it. And so that was my preference, was to have this merger of the two relational and business oriented kinds of approaches. And that works for many, many people. It might not work for everyone. I mean, BNI doesn't work for everyone in the sense that one of our core values is accountability. We're going to hold you accountable. If you don't show up, we're going to ask you to leave. If you get bad referrals, we're going to ask you to leave. And some people don't like that. They don't like rules. And I've always felt that hockey without rules would be boxing on ice.
I thought it was. Wait a minute. I grew up in Pittsburgh.
It works because we have accountability.
I grew up in Pittsburgh. The Penguins. That's exactly what the hockey games were.
That is. I was born in Pittsburgh, by the way.
Oh, were you?
You were? Aha! I did not know that.
Okay.
Where in Pittsburgh?
I was born in the South Side, which I learned. I learned because I grew up in California. I learned don't say South Side. It's South Side. So I grew up in South Side. I was born in South Side. We moved when I was 6 years old. So I have, just very few memories of Pittsburgh.
So is that like Washington, Pennsylvania, Bethel Park, Mount Lebanon, any of that?
Oh gosh,
You don't know.
You know.
All right, you left Pittsburgh
I know
to
we were very
go.
close to a hospital.
Okay.
All right. So
All
I
right.
got another question for you. I understand what you say. You have like 25 books. All right. And
Counting.
okay. So which book do you recommend that somebody read first?
So it depends on what their needs are. Let me give you two diverse needs to recommend two different books. If someone's interested in learning how to network and they really want to accelerate their efforts in networking, I'd recommend Networking Like a Pro, 2nd edition. It's an expanded edition. Networking Like a Pro, 2nd edition. It is a great book. It has the basics and some advanced stuff in it on how to network effectively. If you, I've written a self-help book which is the one and only self-help book I've done. But I love this book, and it's for everyone, anyone that wants a better life. This is a great book. It's called Who's in Your Room? The Secret to Creating Your Best Life. Would you like 2-minute summary of the book?
Yes, that's your latest one, right?
That is one of my latest ones. Yes.
Okay.
I just came out with a book called Infinite Giving: The 7 Principles of Givers Gain.
Oh.
It's on Amazon. But Who's in Your Room is a much broader audience. Here's the concept. Imagine you live your life in one room, and that one room has only one door, and that one door is an enter-only door, so that when people come into your life and into your room, they're there forever. You could never get them out. Now, luckily, this is a yeah. And people always chuckle there. Now, luckily, this is a metaphor. But if it were true, would you guys be more selective about the people that you've let into your life?
Yes.
But am I allowed to go
Yeah,
out
everybody
and
says
know
yes.
them before I let them in?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, well, that's our argument, is that you do need to know a little bit about them before you let them close to you, before you let people into your room. Now, I do have some people. I don't like the metaphor because I can get people out of my life. So what I want you to do, I want the two of you, and I want your audience, if you're listening to this podcast, I want you right now to think of someone you got out of your life. Now, I'm not going to make you guys name them for me, okay? But in your mind, later I want you to share with each other off air who it was, to find out if it was the same person, because oftentimes it is. I want you to think of somebody that you got out of your life, and why. Were they toxic? Were they angry? Did they do things that were hurtful? And if you're listening to this podcast, I want you to envision that person, and now I want you to think about what they did to you that made you want them out of your life. Okay. Do you guys have someone in mind?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if they're still in your head, they're still in your room, and they will be there for the rest of your life. You will make decisions for the rest of your life based on the experience that you had with that individual. You may make good or bad decisions, but you'll make decisions based on that experience. You have to understand that the room, if you take your right index finger and put it on your right temple, take your left index finger and put it on your left temple, your room is everything in between those fingers. It is your mind. And when people build relationships with you, their fingerprints. I interviewed Dr. Daniel Amen, psychiatrist, neuroscientist, and he said when you have a relationship with someone, business or professional, their fingerprints are all over your brain for the rest of your life, and good or bad. And so the whole idea of the book is, how do you get more selective about making sure that the right people get into your room, into your life, and how do you deal with the ones that you probably should have never let in, or maybe they were family members and you had no choice. And that is the book.
Okay, LinkedIn. All right. So you have LinkedIn, and you have all these people that come to your door, and they knock on it and say, "Let me connect with you." Should you be putting them through some sort of an analysis to say?
Well, look, I have 30,000 LinkedIn followers. They're not in my room. The only ones on LinkedIn who are in my room are people who I actually know. And I know them, I've met them personally, or I've worked with them online. So just because you have a follower, I've got 160,000 followers on Facebook, they're not in my room.
So they're really more like in your yard, and then.
Yeah, they're in your yard. They're on the. I like to say they're on the porch.
Okay, all right, I'm with you. Hey, I'm just learning this stuff.
What's so funny,
Yeah,
Ivan, I have to say this, is that when we're going through this, networking is my thing. I love it. I love to do it. I love to read about it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm sitting here and I've got all this and I say, oh, he's written a new book. And he's reading your bio and he goes, he's got 6 books and on networking. And he says, I don't think I could write a paragraph on networking. And I go, Mac, you just have to really learn to network. And he loves to socialize. He just doesn't realize there's forms of networking that go with that. It was really funny.
socializing is absolutely a piece of that, no question about it, because it's like I said, it's about farming, not hunting. So it's about getting to know people. That is an important part, and then you got to take a few other steps along the way.
Yeah, you are so right. Okay, so your book, that is your personal book that you said that you're talking more about yourself. Now, you said you just wrote a new one. What was the new one?
So the new book I wrote is called Infinite Giving, The 7 Principles of Givers Gain. And, I'm sure I've talked about this in the past, that Givers Gain is our principal core value in BNI. Mm-hmm. And I feel very strongly about this concept of Givers Gain. Givers Gain is more than a phrase. It's a way of living one's life. It's a perspective to view and interact with the world. It's an attitude, not an expectation. Mm-hmm. And when it's applied properly, it will change your life. And when it changes enough lives, it'll change the world. And that's the book I just did.
That sounds wonderful. I know that that is a big thing for me as well. I love to connect people. I just love to connect when I meet someone and go, you know who you need to talk with. You know who you need to. A new thing that it's not a new thing I've been doing, but it's becoming more and more popular because of this year, is introductions over email. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's a continuum. It's like I wrote a health book a number of years ago because of a cancer diagnosis I had, and in there I talk about good, better, best. There are good things. The book is called Healing Begins in the Kitchen, and it talks about how I changed the way I ate and went into remission. I was told I had 6 months to get surgery. It's been 8 years. I've never had surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy, and it's because I changed my diet and did other things related to that, but never had to do anything invasive. And in there I talk about good, better, best, but I think good, better, best applies in many things in life. And so, there are things that you can do that are good, there are things that you can do that are better, there are things that you can do that are the absolute best. And whenever you can get to the best, you're going to have better results.
I think that is wonderful. That I was in that same scenario at one time. So congratulations for moving forward in your health. Okay, before you leave, I want you to explain. You used the phrase. You have it on your website. You've used it for years, and that is farming versus hunting. Why don't you explain that a little more? I think that's a good phrase.
So, yeah, I thank you. I do too. I like it. So I did a seminar. I was a keynoter at a big event in London a number of years ago. Who knows? It might have been that event when we did the interview. And there were 900 people in the audience. And I don't know what possessed me, but it was an all-day thing. I was the keynoter, and there's a lot of networking going on. And I saw a lot of people kind of being transactional. And so I don't know what possessed me, but I asked them, I said, hey, everybody, I have 2 questions for you. First question, raise your hand if you're here today hoping to just maybe possibly sell something. 900 people raised their hands. The entire room raised their hands. I said, okay, great. Second question, how many of you are here today hoping to, maybe just possibly buy something? No one raised their hands. Not one single person. So this is what I call the networking disconnect. Karen, people show up at networking events and they're trying to sell, but nobody's there to buy. So people then ask me, well, why in the world would you go? You go for this reason. You go to work your way through what I call the VCP process. Visibility, credibility, profitability. First, you have to be visible. People have to know who you are. You know that old saying, it never hurts to ask? That's wrong. It does hurt to ask. If you ask when you're not even at visibility, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to be at visibility. Then you move over time to credibility, where people know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it. And then and only then can you get to profitability, where people know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it, and they're willing to refer business to you because they know you're so good. And that's why you go to networking meetings. So you go to people that you meet people at an event that you've never met before, and your goal is to get to visibility with them. you meet people that know you, and now your goal is to get to credibility, and you want to talk deeper about issues, about business, so that they recognize your credibility. And then, of course, you meet people that you're at profitability with, and it's shorthand. Hey, how you doing? How'd that referral work out for you? How's business going? And, it's much more personal, and you can go deeper with those people that you're at profitability with. That's why you go to networking meetings, is to work your way through the VCP process, not to close sales.
Yeah.
Look, you can... A blind squirrel can find a nut. You can stumble over business. And people think that networking is basically face-to-face cold calling, and they're wrong. That's face-to-face cold calling. It's not networking. Networking is about building relationships and going through the VCP process.
Yes, I agree 100%. I had an experience myself years and years ago when I was working in Washington a lot. And I brought a friend with me. She was very good in business and such. And all of a sudden, I'm introducing her to people so that she can build her network and she can work with these people. But what she was actually doing was saying to these people, "Oh, so Karen introduced us, so now I want to do business with you." And that was just it. And I'll never forget a few of them coming up to me and saying, "Are you telling them because we meet that I'm going to do business with them?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And I had to stop her and say, "You will no longer come to Washington, D.C. with me, because this is not what you do. I brought you here so you could meet these people and start to build your own relationship. They're not going to hire you because you know me." So
in one of my books we call that. In one of my books we call that premature solicitation, which you don't want to say fast 3 times; it'll get you in trouble.
It is so wonderful to hear from you and to talk to you about this. I love this subject. I love the way people are. I mean, it is a new wave. It's a new course that we're going on, and I like it. I have to tell you, there's. At the beginning, I was probably frozen, and then you have to get focused. And it's a little scary because it is different, and it's not what you're used to. Yeah. And so you have to get over that. And that can be, I love that term you said, frozen or focused. And boy, that is true. So, okay, so is there anything you want to leave us with? Great.
Well, sure, talking about the frozen versus focused, I had a BNI president come to me at the beginning of this whole COVID mess, and she said, we got a baby boomer member who he won't come online. He won't come to the Zoom meetings. It's taken everything to get him to do the referrals online, and he just won't come to the meetings. And I told her to say something to him I never tell people to say. I told her, "Tell him Ivan said." And I never do that because people don't care if Ivan said it, but this was appropriate, I think. So I want you to tell him, Ivan said to tell you, he hates change. And that's true. I do. I hate change. And then tell him this. Tell him, Ivan said he hates change, but what he hates more than change is failure. He really hates failure. And so you can change. I told her, tell him this. You can change or you can fail. The choice is yours. I can't make you do it. You have to be willing to do it. And if you're willing to do it, I will help you to make that transition. I will help you to make that change. That gentleman is still in BNI, and he's now going to the meetings on Zoom. It's been, 7 months since he had to, 6 months since he had to make the transition. And I'm very proud of him. You can change or you can fail. Choice is yours. I can't make you change. You've got to be willing to do it yourself.
Yeah, very, very good. Oh, I love talking to you. You're so exciting to talk to. Thank you very, very much for all. Is there any other questions? Mac is just stunned. He's sitting here, I've been doing networking and leading networking and for all of our sales group for years and years, and Matt goes, "Oh," he would always say, "That's really good. That's really good. I really like that. That's really good." But he was fearful. But then when he did it all last year, he would come home and go, "I had the best time. I had the best time." And then COVID came, and it was like, oh darn, so
Yeah.
now it's, he has to rev himself back up. So but I think that that he's excited to get back out there. He is more of a people person than he realized he was. Would
Yes,
you agree with that?
Yes, there are, and I have no idea the size of your groups. This 9,700.
You mean
Are-
individual groups?
Individual groups, and it also sounded like you'll have more than one of those groups in the same city or geographical region. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and can they move, or are they assigned to one of those?
Well, yes, chapters members can move from one chapter to another. We don't always recommend that, because you're building relationships with people. But sometimes there's a conflict. There's somebody in their group you don't like. Sometimes something happens personally, and you need to, for whatever personal reason. Maybe your office has moved, or you've moved your home, and so yeah, people can move, but it's not extraordinarily common.
Okay. The reason why I was asking is because I've been a part of a couple of other programs, and one of the things that I sometimes find is where some of these groups aren't very creative, and so you've got like maybe 10 people, and they're all trying to find somebody that can help them to be creative, and so they're all looking for somebody that's going to lead them down the path of
Success.
meeting many. And after a while, you're like, okay, I'm not going to learn anything in here. I need to, find groups where they are more, let's say, mature. They have, a number of people that they actively meet and stay in touch with and groom, and so, that sometimes if I just found 2 or 3 people on the outside who are in the same industry or industries and are really connected, that is a better source of networking. I'm sure it varies from one group to another group to another group.
It does. It does. But remember one thing. Remember something I talk about in Networking Like a Pro. I call it the butterfly effect of networking.
Okay.
The butterfly effect is part of chaos theory, which is in the field of mathematics. And it basically says that the flapping of the wings of a butterfly changes some minute thing in the environment, which changes something, which changes something, which changes something else, which changes something, which changes the weather. And the butterfly effect in networking is a really powerful force. And I remember one day I was on Necker Island in the Caribbean, and I was sitting there and I had to write an article. It was due, and everybody was out having fun, but I had to write this article in the great room. At the time, it's the only place they had the internet. And up walks Sir Richard Branson, of Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Galactic, Virgin everything. And he looked at me and he said, "So what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I have a deadline on an article. I got to get it out today." And he said, "Oh, yeah, I understand deadlines." He said, "Look, we're all out by the pool and the ocean. When you're done, come on down, hang out with us. Let's have some fun. And if I don't see you down there, sit next to me at dinner. I'd like to learn more about this B&I thing that you got." And he walked away, and I remember sitting there thinking, damn, how did I get here? Where a billionaire would walk by and say, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's go out and play. Sit next to me in the lunchroom. Let's talk." And I thought, how did I get here? And what I did was I reverse engineered the relationships that I had that got me to his island. Necker Island is his private island. And what got me there? And it was a 2.5-year journey that started with a request from a solopreneur entrepreneur, a business coach. Solopreneur business coach. It wasn't a big company. She just asked me for a favor, which led to something, which led to something, which led to something. And all along the way, I was trying to go through visibility, credibility, profitability, until 2.5 years later, I got an invite to Necker Island. The butterfly effect is real, and it's powerful. You don't always have to be networking with people who have a ton of great contacts. You have to be networking with quality business professionals because they know other quality business professionals who know other quality business professionals. And you can continue to go through that effect until magical things truly happen. By the way, if you want to read that article, I wrote that article that day. It's on my blog at ivanmisner.com back in 2007, and it's called The Butterfly Effect of Networking. And that was from my visit to Necker Island. And I've been there now 3 times, and amazing experience.
That is very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was very cool. Great story. Well, I could talk to you for hours, but I know you. Maybe I should. Let's see. How do I get you to get us to Necker Island? That's what I should be asking, Ivan.
Well, you know what? Actually, anybody can go, except Richard may not be there. I had the opportunity to be there 3 times when he was there by invitation. But Necker Island's available to the public, but it's crazy, stupid money, and it is expensive. But he may or may not be there. He no longer lives on the island. He lives on an adjoining island.
So it'd be more important. I'm sure I'd have more fun if I was on the island with you anyway, because you like to boat, you like to travel. So we have a lot in common, Ivan. So I'll just go there. Well, I thank you for taking the time out of your day. Once again, I have asked a question and you have said yes. So talk about a network. Talk about your butterfly effect. You have been wonderful for Mac and I. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being on the show. And you gave such good information. I don't care what level you are in business, that this is always important at this time when it's such a scary time, and you could be a baby boomer who doesn't like change or a millennial who loves to be online. Whatever it is, you gave such good information, and I appreciate it greatly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
We wish you much success, and we'll be talking to you soon behind the door.